It breaks my heart just over the last 4 or 5 years how we've seen too many great leaders and great organizations start to crumble because they were going at a pace, or they didn't have the humility to acknowledge limits or boundaries and things that we all need to keep in check, and the way those things crumble. So it's always been a message that's resonated for 20 plus years. It's been resonating, but I'm seeing some things happen right now that make this moment in history even more necessary for the message that you have with servant leadership.
You're listening to the High Purpose Leadership Podcast with Dr. Mike McCormick. Conversations from leaders to leaders in this post-pandemic age. On this episode, he'll be talking with Dr. Ken Jennings, best-selling author, consultant, and speaker in healthcare strategy and leadership development.
All right. Hey, guys. Welcome to the High Purpose Podcast. I am so excited to be able to introduce my friend, business partner, and first official guest of the High Purpose Podcast, Dr. Ken Jennings. Ken is founder of Third River Partners, co-author of several books, probably most well-known for The Serving Leader. I pulled the Blanchard series one out, Ken. Also, Greater Goal, co-authored with his wife, Heather. Maybe a little less known, but your first book, Ken, I understand, Changing Healthcare, straight from the Anderson consultant days, as it says there, and a co-author with me on House on Fire, the book that we wrote that's specifically faith-based. So, Ken, thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Well, you're welcome. It's my pleasure, Mike.
We were talking before that, boy, you've been in so many different healthcare organizations, at least 100 over the course of your career, and it's starting to add up at this point.
It really sounds amazing when you say it like that. It's probably a lot more, but I'd have to go back through my Google Maps to see where I was.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The mileage is probably getting more than the time markers, right?
Absolutely. Right.
Well, hey, I was thinking I wrote some questions down for us to think through together, and a lot of the questions today, I think I kind of know the answer because we work so much together. But actually, I wanted to start off with a question on a little more personal note, and I think maybe you've told me bits and pieces of this, but I've never just directly asked you this. So I'm as interested myself in the answer as our listeners will be today. Here's my first question. You've carved out a niche for yourself in creating cultures of serving leadership. But before we really get into like what that means, I'm actually wondering who were some of the people, or what were some of the experiences that shaped you and brought you to this place where you have such a commitment to serving leadership. So tell us a little bit about maybe some of the heroes or formative events that brought you to this point.
Well, it's a great question. I think we're influenced by role models around us, and sometimes it just seeps into us over time as we reflect on what we've seen. I'll try to do it maybe quickly in chronological order. Easiest is my dad, Ken Jennings, and there's a whole lot of him in the Serving Leader book that you picked up. It's a good thing about writing fiction. You get to weave as much as your real life in as the fiction, and people don't know which is which.
That's right.
But my dad was a real serving leader. He probably went into the Army when he was 16, illegally, wound up in Germany, staying on after the war for about 7 years. I got to work with my dad a lot growing up in various roles and jobs. He eventually became a builder, and he managed this way by serving his employees that in turn served the customer. Then I went off to the Air Force Academy, and I had parents there. They were not my genetic parents, but they welcomed me and many other cadets into their home. Ed and Betty Bauman were their names, and they were amazing Christian believers, but they served the cadets and showed me what a difference for an officer was between being authoritative and serving. Then I went into very active military work around the world, embedded with the Army, the 82nd Airborne. And I think my most memorable mission was a large-scale rescue operation and relief, where we were literally serving the populations in the Caribbean. We weren't going off to fight, we were all to go fix. And I really found I enjoyed the helping aspect and working with my team, serving their needs, and we in turns were serving others. So those were some early experiences and role models, I would say. And I had a chance to take the uniform off for 3 years and do a PhD in the area. And my faculty really helped me explore my interest in what kinds of leadership actually works. And it looks like what we're talking about here, serving leadership.
Yeah, that's so good. You have both the family, the professional, the military, and I agree. And we've talked a lot about this, that so much of leadership is caught, not just taught. So much of leadership is way more than in the classroom, and it does kind of rub off on you and the people that you're around and the examples you have to follow. They shape you for sure. So yeah, I knew about your dad a bit there and knew some of the connection with the serving leader, but that's good to hear. So you've got all of those people in your background, all those experiences, and also education that's targeted toward that. So from those people and from your experiences and education, and now years of consulting. I was looking at the Serving Leader book. It's coming up on a 20-year anniversary. At least the edition I have was 2003. That first, the first one that was a Blanchard series. So from all that experience, describe your view of serving leader and what a serving leader actually does.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I'll springboard off of an experience that I had actually just today, a few hours ago. I had a chief executive officer from Southern Florida health system contact me about doing things differently within his organization. And he said, Ken, I've been a fan of your work for decades, starting with my work as a physician at the Cleveland Clinic, where you were doing culture change work using the serving leader. I just want to let you know that has sat in my heart for 20 years. And now I've arrived at a point where I have the privilege of helping change a major health organization. And I want us to do things differently. So thank you.
Wow.
That was a wonderful kickoff to my day today. But what he's talking about doing is different from the philosophy of servant leadership. I differentiated my interest in work from the Greenleaf philosophy. I agree with it, but it's very philosophical. What we've written about and worked on is what you actually see a leader doing. So if you pick up the Serving Leader book, I've got a slightly newer version than you do.
There's the new one. Yep.
We talk about the 5 actions that you would see a serving leader doing. The first we would see them articulating for their team a greater purpose of the organization. I say in the book, or at least elsewhere, you don't invite people to join a company, you invite them to join a cause. So a serving leader is constantly talking about the purpose and the mission of the organization, what the calls they're actually joining. And that's then followed quickly by a serving leader that gets their ego out of the way so they can listen to others, they can empower others, they can be on the same level as others. And it's attitude in action, I would call this one. The action we called is Upending the Pyramid. Don't be at the top of the pyramid, but place yourself in the bottom, looking up and serving others. That's the upending the pyramid kind of thing. And that shows up when a leader is teaching, not just telling, when we keep in mind the end in mind, where we're going, not just specific goals and objectives. The third thing you would see is a leader that I think contradicts this notion that I hear sometimes that servant leadership or serving leadership is soft.
Mm-hmm.
Anything but that. So the action here is what I call raising the bar. It is being very clear, very specific about the high goals and aspirations we're aiming at together. So a serving leader knows their people so well, they can reach in and say, you've got the strengths for this. Here's the goal. I really expect more out of you than probably you do yourself. And a good serving leader is raising the bar. Then the next action follows with it pretty clearly. So then I put myself to work as a leader, helping it to become possible for others to then achieve those goals I've raised the bar on. And I've called this one blazing the trail, making a path that others can follow. It has to do with teaching, training, providing resources so that others can follow it, experimenting and learning and testing what really works, and then taking that to scale. Perhaps the last action I would point to is building on strength. The advice that we usually give that, well, here's your strengths and here's your weaknesses. The advice is usually wrong. We usually hear leaders say, so go work on your weaknesses. Turns out they're called weaknesses for a reason. You're not good at it, and you probably never will be.
Right.
So the better advice for a serving leader is to identify strengths in teammates and others and say, you're good at that. Find other ways to apply just that on our behalf. And for weaknesses, go partner with somebody else that has your weakness as a strength. So build on strength is something that we make really clear along the way.
Yeah, I love how.
Those are what you would see.
Yeah, and I love how in the book you use the idea of a paradox, how, something that may not seem that way on the surface, but actually is true, sort of a contradictory principle that's true. And so some of those things about, if you want to be first, you actually have to be last. If you want to, use your, be your best, you don't actually, try to improve all your weaknesses to get to mediocre. You actually reapply your best in other environments. So there's a lot of traditional views of leadership and style that evidence-based research says it isn't really working. And so there is a new way, and this is a wonderful pathway that you've laid out. I was thinking about this, that, at least 20 years, more than that probably, that you've been putting this into practice. But since the book came out, that it's been resonating with people. So as you look back over your consulting practice, why do you think that's so? Like, what is it about it, or why do you think that this approach, this message, this how to put it to work, why do you think it has resonated up to this point for so many leaders?
Yeah, I think there are three major reasons when I reflect on it. The first is just those actions that I just described that define what a serving leader does. Those actions resonate with people. They will say, on my best days, those actions are how I aspire to lead. And you've helped with the language of what those actions mean, with the verbs of what it means in action. And you've invited us, myself, leaders will say, into something that just feels right for me. It feels like the best of me. So there's something perhaps hard to define in our heart and our soul that calls us to lead in a way that brings the best out of people. The second reason is, I think the customers of organizations that have leaders that act this way want to buy your services and products because you're coming across transparently as good people, good teams, and that there's trust that gets built very quickly. So when customers believe you, they believe you about your products. It's a virtuous cycle of going from, I like to lead this way, to this actually works with my customers. I think the third reason is because many of the other approaches to leading and teaming just don't work.
Yeah.
They work in a very short
hmm
fashion with pressure, with perhaps drama, with pushing. And you can only keep that up until teams are burned out. You're sprinting again and again and again. Leaders perhaps speak louder, maybe even yell louder.
hmm
And that just doesn't work. So when we've gone into places that have tried other things, and they'll say something like, this was the solution we were always looking for.
Wow. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Genevieve, how about it?
Man, that conversation you had with Dr. Ken Jennings was phenomenal and so packed full of information. So we decided that we were going to take a little bit of time to kind of unpack some of these major overarching values, philosophies, ideas. And so, so right now we're going to kind of talk about those 5 actions that he had referred to, the 5 actions a serving leader would do. And so those are run to great purpose, upend the pyramid, raise the bar, blaze the trail, and build on strengths. I mean, there's so much in there.
I know.
And
It
so
it is the is the guru of serving leadership, and those are the 5 actions in his book, actually, the serving leadership. And most everything we do with high purpose practice is really hardwired back to those. So it's going to be fun to unpack them. Yeah.
yeah, as I was listening, I was just, I mean, I couldn't write it down fast enough, he went through them so fast. He has so much knowledge and information in his mind. And so I have so many questions that I am excited to have this conversation with you to kind of open that up and say, man, how do we apply that? What does that actually look like almost on a day-to-day basis? What does that look like when you apply that to your team? So let's start with run to great purpose. Dr. Ken said something about, you don't invite people to be a part of your company. You invite them to be a part of a vision or purpose. What does that look like? What does that mean?
Yeah, I think this is one of the most important starting places. Of course, with the high purpose practice, everything we're doing is geared toward that sense of purpose, your personal purpose, and then creating a sense of organizational purpose as well. I really like the Kuzes and Posner idea of inspiring a shared vision, that so much of what we do in our work is trying to get people to buy into something, but really we want to invite them to be part of something bigger. So practically, I think when you invite someone to be part of a cause, you are able to articulate what the desired outcome is. What is our purpose? And I remember the story of NASA. John F. Kennedy was traveling through NASA for the first time. And of course, they had charted out to be able to go to the moon. And he ran into a janitor and he said, tell me what you do here. And the janitor said, I'm helping to put a man on the moon. And yeah. Every person has a line of sight into what the great cause is, right? Same thing happened at the Cleveland Clinic. They were talking about everybody is a caregiver. Everybody's a caregiver, not just the physician. And so one of the janitors there said, I'm helping to create a clean environment for people to get well, because everybody's a caregiver, right? So, and whether it's healthcare or manufacturing, I was talking with another group where they do water filtration. And they came up with this realization that water is life, even in space. When you're looking at, finding new planets, and could life be possible? The first question is, well, is water there, right? And so they have this idea that whether you're manufacturing, insulation or pipe pieces on our assembly line, or running the robot to create that, right? You are bringing life to people, because water, life. So being able to articulate what the desired outcome is for your organization. And if that's not super clear, then also creating a workplace environment. This is a great place to work, because we're creating opportunities for families, for people to come and find their own purpose. So even if the external outcome isn't so clear about, or compelling, creating an environment where people come and work together and be human together, that can also be part of that, creating that cause together.
Yeah, it's so good. It really kind of elevates not just you fulfilling a role description or a job description,
Yeah.
right? Like as you realize, man, my value and who I am and my worth is not just in what I can accomplish these taskless things, but really there's so much more in what I'm doing here. I love that. So tying people back to a purpose, and not just being a part of a company or a description. That kind of goes into the next part, the upending the pyramid. Talk about the pyramid a little bit. What is that? What does that mean? And then what does it mean to
Yeah.
upend?
Yeah, so the pyramid is the visual picture of the traditional command and control style of leadership, where one person or a very few people are at the top, if you will, of the organization, and the masses are down at the bottom. And generally speaking, in those kind of structures, one or two or a very few number of people make decisions, set the vision, set the direction, and then they spend most of their time pushing that down in the organization, telling others, here's what to do and here's how we're going to do it. The idea of upending the pyramid means that the people at the top are not at the top. The purpose is at the top. So if you have a great cause, a compelling reason to exist, then that becomes the unifying focus. We, as the leaders, see ourselves upending the pyramid so that we are at the bottom, and our job is to equip or lift up as many people as possible to accomplish that purpose. In that case, then you become less of a teller, more of an equipper. Your job is to, lift others up, not to tell them what to do. I think you and I were talking earlier about this idea of buy-in. Anytime somebody says, we need to get more buy-in, I cringe a little bit, because usually what that means is they have a top-down approach. They themselves have gone into their office and come up with a great idea, or maybe one or two people gathered together. And now they're trying to sell the rest of the organization or their direct reports or whoever they need to get the work done on this great idea, right? But people know that feels like a sales pitch to me, and you're basically just need me to do all the work. So what good is that? But I can't tell you how many meetings I've been in where that's basically what's happening, where they're trying to get buy-in. If you upend the pyramid, you realize, no, what we need to do is articulate a clear purpose, invite people into that. That will be motivating. That will compel them. Then together we can chart a course. So what will it look like in 3 to 5 years for us to accomplish this purpose? What would it look like in your area? And you invite people and you co-create that stuff together. The strategy and the tactics, really, the responsibilities that will come with that. We can talk a little bit more about when we talk about teaming on how to do that in a shared approach. But that's really what upending the pyramid is. It's inviting people into that, seeing your role as really the equipper, the enabler in a good way of them to accomplish that purpose.
Yeah, that's so good because I think when we look at individuals and we start seeing them as individuals and what their skill set and their giftings are for a greater purpose, then we
Yeah.
start looking at them and saying, man, like part of you being in this order, in this organization or whatever, is that you have such a huge piece to play rather than being told what to do. It's saying, what can you kind of contribute now? And I think that's very motivating. I don't need a sales pitch when someone tells me, man, these are things I see in you. And now, like, how can I support you in doing the things that you are really good at? And that is what you were saying, the difference between the buy-in, right? Trying to convince me that I have to be a part of this thing, and ownership. Man,
Yeah.
now
That's right.
I see that, I am a part of this thing actually, and I can do this because of my giftings and my set, gift sets and all this stuff. So I love that. Upending the pyramid. What a concept. What a
Yeah,
concept.
I'd say it really helps to define the core of the shift that we're looking at when we talk about serving leadership, not just being nice people or even just wanting to help people, although it often has that sense to it, a people-centered approach of others. But practically, I think that's the biggest difference right there. Yeah.
Yeah. And that also directly now ties into raising the bar. As a leader,
Yeah.
what does that look like? What is
Yeah. So again, and Ken says it so well, it's not just about, being a nice person or maybe what be perceived by others as very soft, right? So that's the knock on the perception, the misperception of servant leadership is you're just soft. You're just, you can't really do the hard things and you're not really results oriented, but that's really not true. Serving leadership sees the individuals, like you just said, and the servant leader realizes that my job is to bring out the best in that other person, right? So tying them to the purpose is where it starts if they share that, but then helping them to really become and bring their best. Engagement is usually the word that's used there. Their discretionary effort, the above and beyond effort. What is that going to take? And so basically, two ways to do that. If someone doesn't know how to do that, then you become a teacher. Let me show you. Let me help you because I want you to be successful. I want you. I believe in you. I see in you that you can do this. Let me show you how. If somebody does know how and they're just not doing it, then that becomes a challenger. Hey, listen, we talked about this shared purpose or these shared goals, and I see more in you. I believe that you can do better here. And is there something that's standing in your way? Let's talk through that. So you challenge somebody and you raise the bar. I love the picture of, kind of climbing the pole vaulter who raises the bar to the next level, the next level, the next level. That's the idea of it's continuous improvement. We're always learning. We're always growing. Every failure is an opportunity to learn. So is a success, right? Failure, FAIL, first attempt in learning. So if somebody's not getting it done, that just means we're going to learn and grow. But you always keep pushing forward to bring out the best, not just for the whole organization or the great cause, but for that person as well. You want to bring out their best as an individual.
Yeah, I love that. Raising the bar. I think it's interesting that we equate like a domineering, authoritative person to strong leadership, and that a serving leader does not have the same, motivating, looking at dashboards, attaining goals, things like that. And I think it is more maybe of a foreign concept to speak into your team and to hit those metrics still,
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of speaking, top down to your team to motivate them to hit the metrics.
Yeah. We'll often say results move at the speed of relationships. So results are going to get done when there's high trust, when there's high collaboration, those kind of things, you're going to get things done. When there's mistrust or the relationship is there's space or separation, people tend to avoid that. People tend to hold back. They don't bring their best. It's been proven that if you want to get the best results, that means you want the highest level of engagement with your employees, and to have the highest level of engagement, serving leadership brings out their best. So really it is a both and. It's relationships and results. You can't have one without the other. Not for very long. Not for very long.
Yeah. And for me to really feel like I'm owning a piece of it, to have ownership means that there has to be trust. It means that, you trust the things that I say and that parts of those things get implemented. And if there isn't that trust, then it really is just words like, I trust you, but, not going to listen to anything that you bring to the table, not moving forward with any of your ideas,
Well, I want you to have ownership of it, right? But that means I need to give you some ownership. Then you need to have the space. I need to be able to trust you. So you can't buy-in has that idea of they're just buying my thing or doing what I want. Ownership means they actually do have some say and some input in that. And in many ways, then leaders have to learn to let go and create some space for people to step into that. In particular, over the next generations, and we can talk more about that another time. But as people are trying to do more succession planning and not just get stuff done today, but think a little more strategically, creating those pockets of ownership for people where they can really learn and grow and fail and learn from that too. Creating some safe, mitigating the risks of people to try those things and learn and grow. All of this is about growing people, bring out the best in other people, and raising the bar is what does that.
And it really speaks to a culture, because when there isn't trust, then I will only do what's safe. And what's safe is just good enough, right?
Yeah, minimal effort. Yeah. Whatever's required, the box, whatever I got to check, whatever the bullet is on my job description, that's my job. That's my responsibility. Just that. I'm going to clock in, I'm going to clock out. Not the purpose, not the bigger thing, not the bigger effort that I want to bring the desire. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so good. Blazing the trail then and helping people get there.
Yeah, this is the idea that there are going to be things that as people are coming up through the organization and accomplishing, that's going to be in their way. And so as one who blazes the trail, you look for those barriers, you anticipate that, and you help to remove and clear the way for them. I think about my sons and daughters who are starting to cut grass right now, different ages, they're spread out. And my role often as I'm teaching them to cut the grass is I look out ahead and see where the sticks are, the rocks, and I'll help them move those so that they can keep pushing the mower. They're learning how to do that for the first time. So I'm anticipating things that are in their way and getting those out so that they can keep going. And I think as a leader, when you have someone who's very motivated, they're connected to the purpose, they see their line of sight, they're owning it, they're doing their part. The best thing you can do is to see what's going to be in their way, help them anticipate that, and play some part as needed in the organization or other relationships of helping to clear the way so that they can be successful. Again, you want them to be accomplishing and motivated and get the results they want to do. So blazing the trail is really about going out ahead, pioneering some of that space for them and allowing them to keep going.
Which is so different from other styles of leadership where, I've been in meetings or in leadership communities before where it's, man, I'm a leader, so I got to do more important things and I'm giving this to you and you got to figure it out. Right. And for them, that equated to ownership. Like I gave it to you, you own it, you figure it out. Whereas serving leader is saying, man, I'm going ahead of you to get any barriers out of the way, because if you win, we win.
We win. Yeah. So yeah, if you're flipping the pyramid, upending it, then when I delegate to you, I also want to see you grow and develop. So I don't delegate to dump on you or I'm at the
That's
top,
right.
clear stuff up. Right. Now we expect people to do their jobs. I'm not talking about doing other people's jobs. I'm thinking about anticipating things that are outside their job or more complex than they're ready to handle and offering about some support, first seeing what they can do on their own, what you can do together. And then if there's anything that you need to do to help bridge that. Sometimes that's conversations across silos and organizations, people they don't know yet. So it could be initiating relationships, introducing them to someone else that they don't have a contact with. Could be access to resources, financial, people resource that they don't have the ability to get that stuff on their own. So you become a support for them, which in the end, they're helping to accomplish the mutual goals that you've set out together.
Yeah, that's excellent. And then the fifth point that Dr. Ken had talked about was building on strengths versus working on weaknesses. I love that point. Speak into that a little bit.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites, and we often focus on what's broken or wrong, and that leads to a feeling of anxiety and really a negative tailspin. Personally, we see this right now with anxiety, depression, but also organizationally, and also a very reactive mode. Instead, what we like to see is focus on the outcomes and also the assets. Start with what's already working well, personally or in the organization. Those are things you can mine, you can build on. So many times we have what we need right under our feet, but because we're just so focused on the barriers or what's broken, we miss all these. So we like to say, stockpile all the assets, think through yourself with your team, everything that's going well, and how can you leverage that into this new arena in order to break through those barriers. When you literally make a list of what's going well, what your strengths are, synergies, skills you have, strengths you have, and how you can use those partners you have, then you have the resources that you need in order to break through your biggest barriers. But it really starts when you build on strength.
Yeah, and this really goes right against this idea that you have to be the one man to do it all, right? And I think there was some glory in that for a while. Like if you were the leader who could do everything, right? You didn't have any weaknesses. You were Superman of your organization. That's really what brought you success. But what we see over time is we see burnout, we see mental health decline. And so this idea of building on your strengths and being open to your weaknesses and inviting other people in, that is so countercultural to say, I'm going to own my weakness and realize I am not good at this. And so I'm going to need other people to be a part of this thing with me. Again, it's the we win, right? We win.
Yes.
Shared ownership. Yeah, I love that.
Yes. Hey, I'm glad you brought that up because we should talk more about teaming next time. We'll have to start there. That sounds good.
Yeah. I think, so your conversation with Dr. Ken was, it was so packed full of good stuff that we're going to have to kind of divvy this thing into two different episodes here. So this episode was all about, the actions of a serving leader, but really next time. And so be on the lookout for this. We're going to be talking about teaming. What does that look like? What is it?
why is it, why is it the thing that's going to be successful and countercultural, but it's really going to be like the next thing that is going to take organizations to the next level. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, we're going to be talking about that. So great. Thank you, Mike. This was so
Always fun, Denise.
Thanks for listening to the High Purpose Leadership Podcast with Mike McCormick. For more information, visit highpurposepractice.com.